You're listening to Infinite TBR, the podcast where we try not to buy more books. I'm Smack.
And I'm Gabi. Spoiler alert! We're going to avoid major spoilers, and when we can, warn when we're going to discuss a particular book in detail so you can avoid that part of the episode. You can also check the show notes for time-stamped flags identifying potential spoilers. And we're back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Excellent.
With a lap dog.
Yes, there's a dog on my lap. It's very large. Not a huge dog.
A dog-sized dog.
Yes. So, what are we reading?
Yes, it's been a while, so we have some book chat to catch up on.
Indeed.
I don't think you had a whole... Well, you had a couple very big highlights.
Yes.
But you discussed them in your newsletter.
I
You
did.
didn't want to go into it today.
Because I want to reread it so it'll be fresh and I can properly gush.
And I have to think you would enjoy gushing more if I've also had a chance to read them and you don't have to control yourself.
Basically, yes, that is absolutely accurate.
Okay.
I forgot about that part.
We are talking about The Wisteria Society
of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton, and its recently released companion novel, The League of Gentlewomen Witches. I loved them both. I read the first one rather recently, and I did that thing where I'd read 100 pages and then the next day I'd go back 30 and read them. So I feel like I read it twice. and then the second one is somehow even better.
It's so exciting!
It's so good. It is just like a joyous book.
But we're not going to talk about it.
We're not going to talk about it. We'll talk about something else.
But we will say, highly recommended. You can see Smack's newsletter if you want to see a little bit more about it, what Smack said.
I'll put it up on the Twitter page. Because there is a link I can share.
We could also add a link to the show notes.
That too.
So we will get to that in a future episode. I have more things to talk about, I guess. None that maybe I felt as passionate about, but, well, some of the... Okay. We'll just start at the beginning. So, since I talked to you last for the podcast, I read Brother Song, which we already talked about, by T.J. Klune.
Extensively.
Yes. Go look for that in another episode, all about Green Creek. And I read The Light at the Bottom of the World by London Shah, which was a bit of a letdown. The world building was very interesting.
Is that
I should
the one
say
with the fish on the cover?
With the whale.
The whale, whatever.
I mean, I'm sure there are also fish.
Okay.
I was too distracted by the whale to pay attention to anything else. So the premise of The Light at the Bottom of the World is this. It's another... Her parents went on a hunting trip and never came back. Except not really. Her father gets basically kidnapped by the government, arrested by the government, and won't release him.
So they kidnapped him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a very black bag thing, and she's trying to win basically an underwater street race. It's post-apocalyptic, so most of the world is covered in water.
Wow.
So everything's in submersibles.
Excellent.
Yes. Like I said, very good world building.
Yeah.
So she's a street racer, and there's
Are there streets?
Well, submersible, the equivalent of street racing underwater.
Okay.
So the streets are still there. All the buildings are still there. So it's very, you can tell that she lives in or around London, is very familiar with London and the UK. So and there's this I think annual street race they do, and it's like a random selection thing, a lottery. And if you're selected to participate, if you win, you get one request of anything you want from the government.
Wow.
And she
so
was
obviously she wants her father back.
Yes.
Yes.
So she enters the street race to try and win to get her father back. And
who is this one by?
London Shah?
I assume it all goes horribly wrong.
Well, so that's actually just the very beginning of the book. So
we can talk around the spoilers, right?
Well, that's the thing is, once you get past the street race, I have to say whether she wins or not to explain the rest of the book.
Oh, so the street race is just
and I don't
beginning.
know if that counts. Yeah, the very first, something. And then, I'm trying to think if there's a way I can discuss this more, but there's this guy who's, I think he's the nephew of a friend of her father's, who's sort of, like, following her around to protect her. And they have this weird thing where she's like, I don't need or want protection. He's like, well, I don't want to be protecting you, but I'm here because I apparently need something to keep me busy, according to... And there's this whole backstory where...
According to who? His uncle?
He's coming from a tragic situation where, like, his family got murdered. Like, there's some battle thing. That's how it starts. It starts with this prologue from his point of view, with mysterious creatures attacking his home. Ooh. And he ends up in London with his, I think, uncle, if I remember correctly. But he's filled with all this leftover rage from his home getting demolished, and it's kind of like both to keep him busy and also to try and keep her safe. It's like, go follow her around and make sure she's okay. Because she's left on her own,
right?
And they are in the know about why her dad got.
Oh.
So basically she's being left out of the loop a lot.
That sounds like fun.
And they're trying to keep her protected somehow without filling her in, which goes as well as it always does.
Of course.
So it was a lot of interesting stuff. There was a big plot twist and reveal in the middle that I really liked because I didn't expect it, and it added an interesting dynamic to their relationship.
Oh, that's cool.
But I didn't love the writing. I thought all the characters kind of had the personalities of rocks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Say what you really think.
I don't want to.
You're not obligated to love everything you read. It sounds like an interesting book. It sounds like
there are a lot of really good things about it. There were some like plot leaps that happened that felt kind of, especially at the end, that on the micro level were not.
Was
very
it the
believable.
author's first book for the debut?
Yes.
Okay.
It looks like it. And the thing, I'm rereading my review to remember how I felt about this and why. Ari, the love interest, whenever he came on the page, it was one of those things where it was very obvious from page one that he was the love interest, because every time he showed up on the page, he'd be described with fiery, amber, honey, or coppery eyes, or skin.
Wait, eyes and skin?
Yes. Some weird combination of those things.
Fiery skin.
Well, okay, that's probably more likely to be his eyes. But coppery eyes and skin came up a lot. Amber eyes and skin came up a lot.
I made a joke. It was not a great joke, but I made one.
I thought you were just like, that's a weird descriptor for skin. And I was like, you're not wrong.
It is.
But literally, that would be more fun.
Well, that sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like there might be enough good things that, like, perhaps her later books will be better.
Yeah. So apparently there was a sequel. I'm not inclined to go read the sequel.
If you didn't like the first one, there's no point. But, like,
possibly,
yes,
exactly. She releases more stuff. I would be willing to dabble again.
Also, the world sounds really cool.
I know, the world is so cool.
And if it is that fully developed with the world building, then maybe her next books will just be, like, more in that world or something.
So if you have more patience for some of that other stuff than I do recommend it, I guess. But I got really exhausted by it. But I think it went pretty fast. More importantly, I finally got to Stealing Thunder and Gifting Fire by Alina Boyden.
I forgot about that.
Yay! They were as incredible as promised.
Oh, good. We've talked about those in the past, right?
We've introduced the plot, like the overarching plot, I think, of the first one. Yeah. I will say that was a unique one in that I did end up liking the second one, I think, significantly more than the first one. Yeah, I love.
That's fascinating. So, to recap, the first one, the premise is that the main character is a trans girl who runs away from home and transitions. This is the first one.
Set in like secondary
pseudo
world based on
India.
Yeah, the Mughal Empire, I think, is says on that.
And she was born the crown prince of this empire, and so she runs away, she transitions, she has these great found family thing going on, and then she meets the prince of this other kingdom, and they fall in love, and they're flying dragons, and it's pretty great. And then the second one, you could probably recap better than I can.
Yeah, so once we've had our preliminary happy ever after from the first one, she's gained enough of a reputation from the events in the first book that she is established as, like, the governor of this, what ends up being the, like, reject town in the middle of on the edge of his empire, and her dad's empire, I should say. Her dad kind of
puts her to work.
And then...
Not lovingly, though.
Not lovingly. So it starts as this, oh, my father finally, like, believes I can do a thing. It turns out it's more of a, I don't know what else to do with this town. It's in this very precarious position. It's about to be overrun by my enemies. Either you, with your brilliance, will figure out how to not have that happen.
It won't get any worse for me.
You just won't be a problem for me anymore.
Oh my god!
So that's
so messed up.
Yep. So that's kind of how the second one starts, and then a whole bunch of things go wrong, and then in true, I forget her name, fashion.
It's worth looking up.
Yes. Keep wanting to call her Alina because that's the author.
Oh, I think. Oh no, wait, you're right. That is the author.
Yeah. Razia is her name.
Oh.
R-A-Z-I-A.
Oh, okay. It makes more sense when I can picture the letters.
Yep. So, in true Razia fashion, politically finagles her way through the whole situation. / kicks ass. / flies her dragons around. / like, just truly just crushes things at every opportunity. Like, even when things are going horribly wrong. And I thought... Horribly wrong. Some of the stuff in the first book was almost... I don't want to say predictable.
I mean, the first book wasn't necessarily... Like, it was predictable on a certain level in that it was the beginning of an adventure.
Yes.
And it was an adventure we've seen before, but with this twist of her being a trans woman.
Yes. And with some of the dynamics with her, the Hajurda group that she's a part of.
Hajurda, I think it's called.
The pronunciation is Hajurda. Okay. At least according to the back of the book.
Oh, good.
I think,
okay.
is what I'm going
off of.
It's been a long
time since I looked it up.
I haven't heard it spoken aloud, but from what I remember...
Future Gabi here. Past Gabi technically remembered correctly. The back of the book does say Hajurda, but I did some Googling and it seems like the actual pronunciation may be closer to something like Hydra. That's my very white Californian attempt, and hopefully that is close.
It's the Hajurda, which is the term for trans women in this, both in actual...
It's a specific kind of trans woman, and they live a certain way.
Right.
But I don't know.
It's like a specific community, yeah. So the additional aspect of, like, how her, not mom, but mom, kind of, like, that, some of that stuff was really interesting. I didn't see the appeal of Arjun, her love interest. I was like, I mean, you go, girl, but I don't see
She was way more interesting than he was.
Yes, yeah, which, like, I'd rather that than the reverse.
Than the opposite,
So, but, like, no wild complaints, just, like, if I'm comparing the two, probably helped that everything, like, the first one established everything and the dynamics and stuff.
The first one was really solid with all that stuff.
And the way the overarching arc with horrible what's-his-face.
That one guy, her cousin or something?
Horrible, gross cousin.
Horrific guy.
But very satisfying.
Yes. Yeah, especially with his mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I lost my shit at that scene. That was the best scene in both books. I nearly, like, screamed in triumph. I was like, yes! So good! Now I just want to reread it.
His mother's so horrible.
So
satisfying.
So satisfying. Anyway, highly recommend those. Will be, so I need to pick those up during book crawl. Very important that I have those so I can reread them multiple times. And then we both read Pawn, Knight, and Queen by Karen Lynch.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit in previous episodes about Pawn and how it was kind of like all the things you like about urban fantasy, bounty hunting, fairy, your parents went on a hunting trip and didn't come back, tropes.
My favorite thing is still that, like, I got to explain to you that supernatural joke. Dad's on a hunting trip and he hasn't been home in a few days.
And now I'm just making it left and right, probably inappropriately.
It's supernatural, so it's all inappropriate.
Yay! So the first one was really enjoyable because
and like
it kind
supernatural. To interrupt, I do mean the show, not like
the concept.
Yeah, yeah,
supernatural.
It's a show that finally ended recently.
Finally ended with so much discourse.
So much. Anyway,
and I think for both of us, Pawn kind of reminded us of all the things that we liked about when you're first breaking into that genre.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, tropes, but done well.
But, like, deliberately feminist.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
had a friend.
She had
this big thing.
She had this best friend who was, like, a real character, who she called her friend to, like, back her up instead of the love interest, which was amazing.
Yep.
And her friend was, like, a fully formed person.
Yes.
And she had a brother.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just, like, she was a real...
There was a family.
Yeah. It was very much an urban fantasy story and not an urban fantasy story, or not a paranormal romance disguised as urban fantasy.
Right. If we're talking.
Yeah.
Genre label.
Yeah, I know.
So that was Pawn, and then I think we both decided that as the books progressed, because you lost a lot of the things that made Pawn so great.
Yeah.
And it didn't necessarily get bad, but
it just
a noticeable drop in quality as it went. Like Violet went off to her friend Violet goes off to be a Hollywood star on the other side of the country, so she's not even really in the third book.
She shows up, and specifically the third book, I had trouble getting through because like the second book was like fine or whatever, but then the third book starts so boring.
Yeah.
The first like 60 pages, there was zero narrative tension at all. She had a birthday party,
and they were being done, like the romantic issue they were having was like meaningless.
Yes.
They like manufactured this
separation
sort of, and no communication, and then like hand waved it all away after the first.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I mean, like I wish I had just quit after the first one, frankly.
I'm okay having read them all, especially since the first one ends with, like, that cliffhanger. Yeah. Like, I'm glad I got all that resolution.
Right. And you know what? The final scene in the last book was really good. It had a very solid ending. Yes. Which I wasn't expecting from the rest of the book. I mean, like, it was a solid ending for any book, but, like, to come back from a meh sort of story, I appreciated that much, at least.
So it was disappointing to see all the things that were really awesome about the first book, kind of like, because like her family becomes less involved, her friend becomes less involved. She's not bounty hunting really in the third book. She's doing other magic quest stuff. Yeah. So, but apparently Karen Lynch also wrote a vampire series that I think my friend Katie said was better.
Really? Okay.
Either Katie or I think Katie and Laura both read that in one of them.
I will let you read that one and let me know.
We'll see if when I ever get around to that. Yeah. But I might check in with whoever the friend was and find out how it ended. Well, because I know Katie and Laura have both read it, or both read the Pawn series. I think it's Katie who went on to read
the vampire
stuff. Her first of which I think is called Relentless.
Yeah.
For those who care. So that was that. Yeah. And then I read a translation of the Inferno by Dante. You know how to say
Alighieri.
last name? Alighieri. Translated by Mary Jo Bang.
Oh, really?
Yes. I went out of my way. I think I mentioned this.
To find a woman translator?
Yes, I went out of my way to find a woman translator. It is a relatively recent translation. I think it was 2006 or 2007. Okay. And this was for my family's book club. This was my older brother's pick. And I think I'm the only one in my family who's read it before.
Really?
Yeah. So I kind of knew what I was getting into. But even I had, like, kind of forgotten a lot of...
Yeah, there's a lot that happens. It's a big book.
It's a big book. It has a lot of layers.
Yes. But,
and her translation was actually very fascinating. I'm really interested in how different translations fall out. I think that's a really fascinating area of study. And she tried to make, and had a very interesting introduction about it. First of all, she went with full poetry.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know how, not knowing a whole lot about poetic structure, I don't know if she stuck to, like, the poetic structure of the original, or if she just kind of did her own thing. But the format is definitely poetry, and then very purposefully made modern references to try and help the reader capture how reading the Inferno would have felt having read it in that time period.
Yeah, because that book talks about, like, quote-unquote modern day celebrities.
Yes. Like his whole thing is he runs into contemporaries in different circles of hell to comment on why they ended up in those circles of hell.
Including a pope?
Yes, including a pope. And apparently that was a big deal at the time.
I think at one point people were talking about excommunication, which he would not have actually enjoyed as much fun as he poked at these people. Like,
so that was super interesting. I personally think that for the Inferno, that's very challenging, because she still kept all of the people and the names, and so it was well annotated. So it had, like, here's who this person was and why Dante is bringing up this person. Here's all the political underpinnings of what he's talking about.
Excellent.
So that was A+. I think the choices to include some of this modern lingo, it, like, threw me off a bit, because you have these conversations with 1500s contemporary, 1400s contemporary, or 1200s?
I think it's 14.
It's
the Medici's.
Right.
I think it's the 14s.
So, has all these conversations with these contemporaries and these old political issues and religious issues, and then all of a sudden we'll throw in modern lingo about it. And I feel like if you're going to do a modern spin on the Inferno, it's either go 100% and have a modern person with modern
that would be...
Wouldn't that be fascinating?
That would be so interesting with, like, modern day people. I would read the shit out of that.
Me too! So, like, either go all the way, or stick to the...
less anachronistic.
Yes. And keep all your notes. Like, that's the thing. Either, like, be heavily annotated, explain all the nuance and stuff, or...
throw it all into the wind.
Whee! But for trying to walk this line, I think she did a very good job. So I do recommend that. And the artist, I'm going to look
it had illustrations.
It had illustrations, and the illustrations
cool.
were incredible. Henrik Drescher is the artist.
Oh, wow.
Henrik Drescher. So if you're interested in this particular translation, I highly recommend a hard copy. I don't even know if there isn't a hard copy, but go get it for the art.
And now that you've read The Inferno, you should absolutely read Gwen de Bond's Not Your Average Hawkeye.
Oh, well.
They go to hell a lot.
Well, apparently now I can't until you take it back, read both, and then give me both. Because you just got the sequel.
I did just get the sequel. And I figured you weren't going to get to it, but like...
Well, I probably won't, but I especially will try not to if I know there's a sequel incoming, but I won't get it until you...
Okay, fine. Well, bring it back to me next time I see you.
Okay. But yes, that sounds fun.
We will schedule our book reading.
Yay!
We'll make it happen.
We'll figure it out. And then the most important... fun thing I read was Light from Uncommon Stars by Ryka.
That's the one.
Aoki.
Ryka Aoki. That's the one I thought you were talking about. The first book you mentioned. Under the...
Oh, the light at the bottom of the note.
Yeah. And I think that actually just won an award.
I sure hope so.
I think it just won like a British science fiction.
It deserves all of the awards. It's actually an interesting one to bring up. Now that I'm thinking about it, we just had a conversation about genre stigma that will show up in a bonus episode. And we talked about how sometimes when you're reading books and someone asks you what you're reading, and you kind of have to make that decision how much to share with a stranger or even someone you know. And if you have enough spoons, I get kind of defiant about it, and I'm like, I will explain exactly what I'm reading. I dare you to have a problem with it. And that's how I was the whole time I was reading Light from Uncommon Stars, is I think someone asked me what I was reading at the moment, and I was like, I'm reading a book about a transgender runaway who ends up being the violin, like, prodigy of the Queen of Hell, and gets adopted by her, and there's a donut lady that the Queen of Hell falls in love with, who's actually an alien from another planet.
Yes!
And there are so many layers to this, and I dare you to have a problem with the fact that I'm reading.
Okay, and I just want to mention here that it is a Hugo finalist,
Woo!
a Indie Next Pick, a New York Public Library Top 10 book, a Kirkus Best Book, a Barnes & Noble Best Book, an Alex Award winner, and a Stonewall Book Award winner.
Yeah, get it.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything I've heard about this book is just people equally excited as you are.
It was incredible.
Good Omens meets The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet.
Having read it now, like, I have not read A Long Way to Small Angry Planet.
Yet.
So I can't, yet. So cannot speak to how it compares to that. Would not compare it to Good Omens.
Okay.
I don't think. It's been a while since I've read Good Omens.
Oh, I haven't read it, but, like, I assume they compared it to the show because it's a little more contemporaneous.
Right. I mean, I guess in the terms of, like, there is a woman involved, Shizuka, who has made a Faustian bargain with a demon to save her own soul. Okay. She's giving them the 7 souls of violin prodigy.
Right.
So I guess in the terms that there is an associate of hell who is a main character, like...
Yeah, I don't know. I will have to read it and find out.
So that was an incredible read. Very emotional. She alternates between different points of view. So we have this trans girl runaway, coming from an abusive home, ends up in an abusive situation with a friend, quote unquote, unexpectedly, and then is like essentially homeless on the street until Shizuka picks her up because she's playing violin in the park.
Oh, man.
And Shizuka's like, you're the one who's gonna be the 7th. And gets adopted, and it's adorable. But so some of that backstory that isn't so back, because it is happening on page, is very rough and very sad, very timely. And then there's Shizuka, who has this Faustian bargain going on with this horrible demon dude, and that the details of that are revealed layer by layer throughout the book. You get all of this really fascinating commentary both on being a queer youth, the Asian American community in LA, and then you have this donut lady, Lantran, who's an alien from, I don't know, the Intergalactic Empire. I forget what they call the actual empire they're from, but she's basically a refugee. Like, her empire has fallen victim to what they call the End Plague.
Oh my god.
Plague book! Which is actually more of a, what's the word? Almost like nihilistic sense of doom that a society as a whole, every society, every civilization reaches at some point.
Oh my god!
This whole idea of, like,
this is it!
Every civilization before ours has always eventually been doomed and fallen apart and been destroyed one way or another. And then it's like almost as every civilization as a whole realizes their own mortality as a civilization, they end up, like, tearing each other apart. And it manifests in very different ways, but they call it the End Plague.
Oh my god.
And so her empire started going kind of nuts about being an empire and taking things over, and she kind of, like, pieced out with her family on a pretense of, she was like, there's this very interesting stellar activity, like some gamma ray radiation show thing that will hit this planet at this time, and if I measure it, set up a Stargate, then other people can come tour it when that happens. I'm going to take my family and do that. Okay, bye. And is basically a refugee from this war going on. And she has her kids and her aunt are with her, so it's an exploration of family, and found family, and you got the Faustian bargains, and intergalactic end plagues, and donuts, and contemporary queer and Asian American issues, and violins and music, and the power of music, and what makes humans human. And there's this very interesting disconnect as Shizuka and Lantran are falling in love, like, of what is important, because Lantran has this is confused by this obsession that humans have with, like, music and games and things, and she's like, none of that is important. Things like the end plague are important, and none of you little humans seem to care. So it's this very interesting, like, learning curve for her, as she's kind of, because they're so much more advanced, so it's kind of like...
Right.
And then Shizuka has these very interesting, never explicitly detailed, like, powers from being this really kick-ass...
Agent of Hell.
Agent of Hell. So just so much going on. It's so interesting. So many, like, different things somehow get thrown together and work really well. There's a really fascinating side plot, I guess, or side, I don't know, where there are these violin makers / repair. There's this family of Matthias, I think is their name. And now it's just the last woman in the line of Matthias. And it was a very, like, male profession. Like, the men pass it down.
Right.
And so when she was little, it used to be this thing that, like, her grandfather and her father were, like, teaching her brothers, or trying to teach her brothers, but her brothers had no interest, and she had, like, the touch, but they wouldn't teach her because she was a girl. So now she's kind of grown up with these learned biases and doesn't think she's worthy of taking on the family name, so she's kind of just holding the fort until one of her brothers or her son will step up. And then, you know, Shizuka sweeps in and is like, you're going to repair this violin. Thank you, bye. And she's like, I can't do this, but I also can't say no. She's the queen of hell. I don't. And so there's this very interesting sidebar of her learning to step into this role, learning all this family history and learning that her father and her grandfather were not perfect and the end-all, be-all of...
That's so nice.
Anyway, there's so many interesting things going on in this book. And
I can't wait to read it.
Very consumable. Like, it was like a page or two of, like, scene at a time. And then either the perspective would change or they'd just switch scenes or switch characters.
So it's all very fast-paced.
Yes, it's very fast-paced. Made me cry. Made me want to play oboe again. It was just so beautiful. It was like reading a song.
That's amazing.
And I can't handle it. And I want more from her. I'm so interested to see what else she comes up with. So yeah, I'm interested to see what you think.
I can't wait.
It's one of the most interesting, different things I have read in a very long time / ever. And I can see the challenge trying to bill it as X meets Y, because it isn't really anything.
Two things.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, everyone should read that. And now I'm reading Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones.
Tell me what you think of Mongrels.
So far, I'm like halfway through.
Should we recap it? Mongrels is sort of a coming-of-age story for this kid who is from a family of werewolves, but doesn't know if he is a werewolf. And his mother died when he was born because he has this, what's called a dew claw on his forearm. And you can find that on dogs. It's like the toe that migrated upward. And so when a supposed werewolf is born to a human mother, the dew claw rips him open from the inside and she dies. And so this kid has a dew claw, but he hasn't changed and he can't change. And he's so many years late changing that he is just desperately afraid that he's going to be human surrounded by his entire family of werewolves. His grandfather dies in the beginning, and then it's him and his aunt and his uncle, his mother's siblings. They were triplets. And they're subsistence survivors. Mm-hmm. They work under the table for really shitty jobs. They live in just shacks. Yep. Change houses and cities on a dime. And it's about him growing up.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it alternates chapters, and it'll be like one long chapter that's like him gradually growing up. Mm-hmm. So it's like one important werewolf thing that happened when he was this age, and then up a year, like up not necessarily a year at a time, but like each of those long chapters progress linearly. Yeah. And so you see him growing up, you see him idolizing his uncle and wanting so badly to be a werewolf, and then his somewhat more level-headed, reasonable aunt who doesn't actually really want him to be a werewolf.
Right.
And would almost rather he be human, be able to live like a normal, non-violent life.
Yes.
And so that's
sort
very
of like
interesting.
if I couldn't get out, then I hope you do sort of thing.
So very interesting family. So there are those long chapters, and I love the structure, how it's interspersed with these like 2-3 page chapters, and those are always from when he's younger, like 8 or 9, and those are always like very cute, very short, like almost snapshots of a werewolf thing. Yeah, like his uncle or aunt teaching him or telling him these stories about what being a werewolf is like, what it's about, because they're trying to prepare him in case he does. Right. But they don't know if it'll actually ever come to that.
And so it's sort of like sharing their culture of being werewolves with him without knowing if he will actually be part of that at all. But like the first of those vignettes, he's like 8 or something, and it's Halloween, and he's dressed up as a vampire. And that part of the narrative is told as if, like, the vampire is the main character.
That's how each of those are. Yeah. So, like, when he's...
The vampire, the journalist.
The journalist, the biologist.
Right. So something that interests him from his human life is brought into this portrayal of werewolf life. And the ending will destroy you.
Oh, cool.
It's amazing.
Oh. So I'm trying to brace for this. It is very violent.
It is, it's a little violent.
Gross.
Yes, there's some gross stuff.
Lots of gross stuff. Every chapter that involves a new, like, werewolf thing is like, how gross can we make this very specific detail? And it's as gross as possible. And it's so well written. Like, I don't hate it. I do love it.
Yes, good. But it's real gross.
And very gratuitously violent. And I find the uncle very frustrating just from a...
Yeah. I mean, how far
exhausting testosterone perspective.
He can...
Making dumb boy decisions.
He makes a lot of dumb boy decisions.
So many dumb boy decisions. And, like, actively ropes the kid into, like, as an accessory to the dumb.
Yep. Because, I mean, like, he's, like,
but I mean,
8?
Yeah.
Like, he is
he's the cool
too.
Uncle.
This kid worships his uncle. Darren, right?
Mm-hmm, Darren.
And Libby.
And they're just, like, I feel like they're just constantly dancing this edge of...
Yeah, they are. Because they
in multiple ways, like, either very violent,
go hungry,
gruesome death, or very slow, poverty-driven.
Yeah, it's an incredible book.
Yeah.
Also, when I wrote a 5-star real short Goodreads review, the author liked it, and I just about died. Because I'd been looking, again, for my thesis, for, like, non-white werewolves. Right. And someone had, like, tagged him on Twitter to be like, I think his book is... and then he found me on Goodreads.
I can see you losing your Kit Kat mind after reading that.
I did.
So, so it's very good. Like, again, only halfway done, but I do recommend it. Like, I would never have picked it up if you hadn't given it to me, but I'm glad you did.
And it took, 6 years? But, like, you're getting there.
Yeah. Well, that's because you made the mistake of buying me a copy or convincing me to buy myself a copy, so it's not on the Smack Shelf.
This was before there was a Smack Shelf.
But I do have an order of priority when it comes to reading my books, and it goes pretty much like library books, borrowed books, and then my books.
I didn't know.
So I almost never read my own books. The only reason I'm reading it now is because our friend Laura read it, and so now I'm on a text chain where I'm the only one who hasn't read it, and now I have to read it.
Oh, too bad. It's not long, though.
No, and it's very, like...
Yeah, it moves.
Consumable, yeah. I think I've used that to describe so many books now, but it is very consumable. It moves fast.
And it's... I know in our genre stigma episode, I talked about this a little, about how, like, it was one of the first or beginning of all the horror books that I've read in the last, 10 years, post-school. And at the time, I was like, no, it's definitely literary horror. And it is, but it's also, like, it's
whatever
werewolf
that
horror.
Yeah.
So, like, if you have a friend who won't read regular horror, and is sort of a
It's a
snob.
It's a gateway.
It is. It's a gateway horror book.
So those are all my recent reads. Anything else you want to mention?
Well, I've actually been I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks.
Interesting.
Downloaded...
Usually find those too distracting.
I do.
Life is too distracting.
Generally,
to do both at the same
But I have found a couple of activities that are rote enough.
Okay.
Where, like, it takes forever to get through if I have to actually pay attention to it.
Right.
So I've started listening to stuff while I'm doing those in order to get through them. And this started because Impact Winter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Impact Winter is one of those Audible originals. It's not even an audiobook, it's more of a radio play. It
sounds awesome.
It's post-apocalyptic vampires, which is usually not my jam. I am very over apocalypse stuff. And even, like, vampires, I'm sort of off on right now. I go on and off on vampires. Oh, and the author is Travis Beecham. It's a full cast of voice actors. There's sound effects. There are multiple times, even when I didn't have, like, noise-canceling headphones on, where, like, a door would open and I'd turn around and look. It's really good. It's really... And, I mean, like, the stories...
Did you sleep at all while you were reading?
I did not listen to it before bed.
So smart.
Yeah. Yeah, don't listen to it before bed. Okay. And it was just super immersive. The plot wasn't, like, that unexpected, but it was so well produced that I didn't care. Yeah. And it was free.
Oh.
Yeah. That's the bottom line here. I downloaded it because it was free.
Is it still free?
I think so. I think it's one of those perma-free things.
Oh, well then.
Yeah. Definitely recommend it if you somehow have an Audible account.
Oh, you need an Audible account.
Yes.
Correct.
It's one of those exclusive things.
Do you need to have, like, actively paying for an Audible account?
No.
Okay,
Just
I probably have a...
Yeah. I mean, like, when you open an Audible account, they want you to subscribe, but you don't have to.
Well, yeah, okay.
Okay. Yeah. And so after that, I was just starving for something that was, like, as equally good. And I found this other book that's, like, an urban fantasy through Chirp, which is, like, the book bub of audiobooks. Mm-hmm. And it had been produced by this company called Graphic Audio, where they also do, like, sound effects and multiple narrators and all that stuff. So I got that for, like, $2, and I listened to that, and it was, like, 5 hours, and I jammed through it in, like, 2 days, and I was like, it's a 10-book series! I got time to burn! The first one is called Immune, I believe.
Okay.
No, the second one's Immune. The first one is Priceless, and they're by Shannon Mayer.
And you've just been going through those?
Yes, I completely overdosed on them. Oops. So, let's see. It's the Riley Adamson series. The first one is called Priceless. The author is Shannon Mayer. And there are these two main narrators that they go back and forth in. And it's like very standard urban fantasy fare. The main character is a tracker. So, like, if you give her a picture and a name, she can find anyone in the world. Except for her long-lost dead sister. Dun, dun, dun! And
wait,
so
is she long lost or is she dead?
She's both, sort of. And then, I mean, this is kind of a spoiler. No?
Unless, I don't know.
I mean, like, she can't track people over large bodies of water. So she can track you if you're dead, but she can't track you if you're in Europe.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And then, like, the guy, the love interest, is this FBI agent who's convinced she killed her sister 10 years ago, blah, blah, blah. They're not, like, I mean, they're very popcorny.
Yay! Love some popcorn.
Yeah. It's been good. And so I OD'd a little bit.
Cool.
I listened to, like, 5 or 6 of them in, like, a week. And now I'm, like, an hour into the 6th one and can't bring myself to, like, listen to them anymore.
Oh, no.
Partially because, like, they're dropping enough, like, foreshadowing hints of someone major who's gonna die.
Oh, no.
And I really like them.
Oh, no.
I know. And I am 100% convinced of what's gonna happen.
Will they be permanently dead?
Yes.
Perma-dead?
Yes. Yes. I'm not looking forward to it, and I'm sure it's going to be this whole, like,
thing.
Go down, saving everybody else, blah, blah, blah. And, like, a couple others went on sale on Chirp, so I bought them. Now I have to, like... Yeah. So I will get through them eventually.
Well, thanks for vetting those.
Yeah, I mean, like, they're time killers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first one was very cheap, and then I went and found the rest through this company, Graphic Audio, and I sort of feel like anyone who does audiobooks and isn't Audible is worth supporting.
It's true.
So, like, it didn't seem like a bad investment. Nope. Even though I will say the production quality is miles behind Impact Winter. That was just incredible.
Sometimes.
I know, that's what happens when you're like the richest company in the world. I know. So I've been reading or listening to a lot of those. Mm-hmm. I just finished Hunt the Stars by Jessie Mihalich, which is the first book in her second trilogy. She does science fiction romance. Yay! And frankly, I mean, like, I really enjoyed her Consortium Rebellion trilogy.
TBR.
Yeah, those are fun.
Infinite TBR.
No way! So I really enjoyed those. I think those are the first, like, science fiction books I'd read in a while, and so it was, like, a very lovely, like, reintroduction.
Probably a little bit of a palate cleanser.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I discovered them late enough that, like, the first two were out, and I didn't have to wait too long for the third one, so, which is always nice. But the Hunt the Stars, totally different world, I think.
And those just started coming out?
Yes. Well, no, the second one is due out in, like, July.
Okay, but still, like, you have to wait
and
for the third.
they stand alone really well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So they're linked stories, but, like, it's the same, like, group of characters.
Gotcha.
And I'm really looking forward to the second one.
Yay. And that's got thrown on my Smack shelf now, so we're up to 30 something, 38, 9... Question mark.
Something like that.
I'll recount someday.
But what I really liked about Hunt the Stars in comparison to her previous books is that, like, there's far less action, but there's more emotional tension. Ooh. And the action that is there is higher risk than just, like, action-packed story.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it was really satisfying. She's clearly, like, learned how to pull a story together. It's great. And I think that's pretty much all I've read that's, like, worth recommending.
Okay. And what are you reading now?
Right now, I'm in the middle of... I've got one of those audiobooks.
The sixth one? That you're an hour into?
Yes. I'll get to it. And I'm rereading The Back Eye, the Anne Carson translation that we talked about in the previous episode. Because I'm still working on that story.
Yay! And you just got another translation today, right?
Yes, I got the Oxford translation. Because there's a phrasing in the Anne Carson one. She does a very, like, modern translation. Mm-hmm. It's like modern poetry. Okay. Whereas the Oxford one is very, like, the stuff I read in college. But there's
literary.
Yeah. Classical translations, yeah.
Let me twiddle my mustache.
Yeah, right? There's a phrasing in the Anne Carson one that I need, like, a more traditional translation to look at and figure out, like, what she's actually talking about. So I'm looking forward to that. I am reading Mr. Wrong Number. I'm about halfway through. Super excellent popcorn.
Yay!
Delicious popcorn.
That one's by Lynn Painter.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that if you're enjoying it.
It's an ebook. Sorry.
Dang it!
Can't hand that one.
I was so sure you had a hard copy of that one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I guess I'll never read it.
Oh, no. It's not like Book Crawl isn't next week or something. 2 weeks. What else am I reading? I don't even know. Yeah, that's mostly it.
Okay. So I guess that means we're all caught up, and the only other thing, speaking of Book Crawl, I accidentally did some pre-gaming for Book Crawl. So for those who don't remember from when I'm sure we've talked about this before, Book Crawl is, I don't know if it's, so Independent Bookstore Day is more universal. It's last Saturday in April.
And the San Diego actually has quite an extensive system of independent bookstores. So a bunch of them get together every year, and they do what's called a independent bookstore crawl, which we abbreviate to book crawl.
Yes.
And I mean, it's the same idea as a pub crawl or a bar crawl or whatever.
But better.
Yes. less alcohol poisoning.
More expensive.
Is it?
I don't know. I've never been on a pub crawl.
No, pub crawls are quite expensive.
Okay.
Because you end up buying each other drinks.
Okay.
So you go around to each of these bookstores. You spend a minimum of $5, and they stamp this thing called a passport, which is basically just like a piece of paper they hand you. And once you get
magical piece of
magical
paper.
And once you get a certain number of stamps, you get one award. If you get like 3 more stores, and you get this other thing award. If you go to all 11 stores, you get like a 3D printed trophy or something.
Yeah. At one point there's an enamel pin, and those are always adorable.
Tote bags.
Mostly
it's an excuse to go like look at books and buy books and smell books.
Yep. Just soaking the vibes. So that is the last weekend in April, and up until for the last few months, the idea has been to not buy books in anticipation of buying many books at book crawl. And then I made the mistake of going to Mysterious Galaxy last weekend with my friend Megan.
How many did you get?
2.
Oh, that's not bad.
2 hardcovers.
That's kind of a lot.
But one of them was Scorpica by G.R. McAllister, which sounds
Is that the one where girls aren't born?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
And the world is like 5 queendoms.
Yeah.
And it has a map in
Oh my god. Maps.
I'm gonna double check the summary. Yeah, and then also all of a sudden, girls aren't being born.
But they're queendom/matriarchal.
Mm-hmm. And they're at peace, but then the peace is shattered when all the girls stop being born. Right. The drought of girls. And then there's all these political and personal consequences.
There's a whole generation where girls are not born.
So there's this like cast of characters. There's a warrior queen, a healer, another queen who's using dark magic, 5 queens, a near immortal sorcerer, demigod.
That sounds awesome.
It sounds awesome. And we read like the first like page or 2, and we were like, oh yeah, we need
this is gonna be good.
And then I've seen this book on the shelf many times now. It's So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. Whoever the artist is on both this one and their previous one, In Deeper Waters, must be the same artist.
It's a delightful cover.
This was In Deeper Waters. I remember I bought this purely based on the cover vibes alone.
Carry On meets Arthurian legend. Oh my god.
And I've been putting off because I was like, no, I will not buy another. This like, I already bought another one by them called The Rules and Regulations for Mediating Myths and Magic.
Oh my god. Aren't you glad that like we scrapped our original idea for this podcast and like
try not to buy one? Oh boy. And
it would be so hard if we actually tried not to buy books.
So hard. So and then In Deeper Waters came out, which has a gorgeous cover and was billed as The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue meets Pirates of the Caribbean.
What?
And I was like,
that sounds amazing.
And then there's this So This Is Ever After, which is like fairy tale vibes with Carry On meets Arthur. And then I've been putting off getting that one because I was like, how stupid is it to get the 3rd book of an author I haven't even read once? I already own 2 of their books.
Those covers are really pretty though.
They're so pretty.
They're very colorful.
And I was like, you shouldn't do this until you know that you'll even like their writing. And then Megan was like, just read the first few pages. And we started reading the first few pages, and it is adorable, stupid nonsense, and I love it so much, so I bought it. It's truly like 2 best friends are in love with each other and are complete morons about it. And that is like
your catnip.
My catnip.
That does sound really fun.
He has like some curse on him and that he like needs to get married or something before some deadline. And his friend is like, try dating all of our mutual friends, and is, like, going through, like, they're, like, trying to, like, see if they can make something work, and these two morons are, like, and all their friends are, like, you're kidding, right? And I'm just, like, yes! So, as you can see, I had to purchase it.
Obviously.
And then, obviously, as you know, Bookshop had their
20% off.
Yep. And so I got to the DFZ trilogy by Rachel Aaron.
Did you really?
Yes, of course I did! Oh. I told you it was Dragon O'Clock! So, this hasn't come up on the podcast before, and I don't know how.
Because it had been a year and a half. But the first summer during the pandemic, 2020, God, we were so unhappy. And then I bought this independently published book called Nice Dragons Finish Last. And I was trying to, like, support Mysterious Galaxy, and I opened it, and I was like, oh, the margins are too small. This is clearly self-published. And, like, okay, I paid enough. I'll just get it. Or get through it. And it grew on me really fast.
Oh, it was so... I'm, like, over in the corner losing my mind. I went rabid for these.
We both did. They got increasingly... Not that, like, the first one was bad.
No.
But, like... It was designed to draw you in. It's a regular, like, 300-page book, and then the next 3 books are 500 to 600 pages, and it's worth every moment.
The stakes get more... Somehow...
It's a masterclass in stakes.
This is as bad as it can get. Right. And then the next book is always like, you were incorrect. It can get much worse. And the whole idea is that you win with kindness.
Yes. By not killing off your enemies and bringing people together. And Gabi's gonna lose her mind. She's gonna punch me. She's so excited.
It was one of my favorite reads of all time.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely up there. They're such a wonderful, positive, hopeful books.
Great characters, great villains.
Excellent cast. Just and the structure of everything is impeccable. Mm-hmm. I actually went, the author of these, the first one is called Nice Dragons Finish Last. And I don't know if the series has a name, because we just call them the Nice Dragon books.
Yes, I'm sure they're
close. But they're by Rachel Aaron.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, like, her 3rd series of books.
I have her other E11 press, which I haven't read yet. Heartstrikers. Duh.
Heartstrikers. Oh, because that's the name of the family. The Heartstriker Dragons. But really, they're just the Nice Dragon books.
The Nice Dragon books!
And I read her original trilogy that she had actually traditionally published with Orbit, and it was not fantastic.
Which one was that one?
I don't remember. It's under Rachel Bach.
Oh, I forgot she has another name.
Yep. They were not fantastic. So skip her first trilogy. It's sci-fi.
Fortune's Pawn?
Fortune's Pawn, that's what that was. And the first one's okay, and they just don't... I had such high expectations.
Right. How do you come off of Nice Dragons without high expectations?
And they're very different books with very different aims. Everybody in Fortune's Pawn are, like, really shitty.
Oh,
yeah. You would not enjoy
I thought that's, like, opposite vibes.
Yes.
Good to know.
But yeah, I don't even remember why we were talking about that.
Oh, because DFC. So I bought, she wrote a companion trilogy, kind of, to the Nice Dragons called the DFC, because that's where they...
The Detroit Free Zone.
Yes.
Because this is, not only is, like, it just really lovely and positive, but it also, I feel like when she published them, they would never have been able to be traditionally published. 1, because of the length, but 2, because it's so many different genres mashed together, and they all work, but, like, you can't tell someone that it's post-apocalyptic, futuristic, science fiction dragons with spirits.
And a cat.
And a cat. The cat is... Isn't the cat a spirit? I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, so...
Ghost cat.
And, like, it's just too many things for traditional publishing to be able to swallow. So... I'm very glad they're out in the world. I know she makes way more money on them than she would if she'd been traditionally published, which makes me equally happy.
Good.
Okay, so most of it takes place in the Detroit Free Zone, which is about 80 years into the future.
Something like
thereabouts. There was like a asteroid or something that hit and woke all the dragons up, and the dragons ended the world, and then... Or, like, the asteroid hit and woke all the dragons up and all the spirits, and now there's magic or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Something
and then
like
the
that.
DFC was established as none of the human rules apply. It's something like anything goes, magical community.
As long as you don't disturb the dragons or something? Yeah, something like that.
It's been a while for both of us,
yeah,
but...
I mean, like, nothing's happened between 2020 and now, so...
It is still 2020. We read these yesterday. So I got the whole...
fantastic books.
DFC trilogy. And you've read 2 of them? All? You haven't read
I
any?
have had... No, because I almost bought the first 2, but then the third one came out and wasn't available in paperback for, like...
Unacceptable.
Months and months and months and months.
They must match!
Yeah. I mean, like, I think they're also, like, on Kindle Unlimited, so I can only get them in paperback, which was... I'm not subscribing
No.
to Kindle Unlimited.
We have our
Sorry,
limits.
Lisa. Send me your story. I'd love to read it, but I'm not subscribing.
Who?
Lisa.
Oh.
My writer friend.
So.
The DFC books. It is a trilogy, and it doesn't have... Like, there's this really lovely epilogue in the Nice Dragon books, so, like, there's no way it includes any of the main Nice Dragon characters. Which is okay. I'm very excited for them.
So excited!
Especially now the third one I can actually, like, get my hands on.
Yay!
I know, it's just amazing.
I wonder when mine will arrive.
You have to text me when they do.
Okay.
Just, like, throw pictures all over the internet. Look at my joy.
Look at it. So I have anticipated book crawl too much. Not enough? Too much? One of those makes sense.
I want to say I've been better about it, but, like, there are ebooks that go on sale, and I buy them.
And we just do. This is how it is.
But I do have this massive list of books in my Mysterious Galaxy cart.
For book crawl?
Yes, any that I don't get at book crawl, I'm just gonna hit buy. Yeah! I'm really looking forward to book crawl.
Me too.
I am trying to finish a few, like, paperbacks I have, especially from that, like, closing bookstore where we bought, like, 15 hardcovers.
They were 75% off!
They were. I still can't believe how cheap they all were. Blows my mind.
Delicious.
I know. It's, like, one of the... I think it was the Echo Wife, the ebook went on sale. Since I bought it at Bookstore.
At Bookstore.
But, like, the ebook went on sale, and I think it was still more than what I paid it for the hardcover.
Of course.
It was a delightful moment.
So, we'll be back after book crawl days. We'll see.
Hungover as all hell.
So, here's hoping you support your local indies during Independent Bookstore Day on April 30th? Whatever that Saturday is.
April 30th.
Or, all the time.
That means we have to get this out before April 30th.
Never mind. Here's hoping
you find a series that is as amazing as the Nice Dragon books.
Yes!
Something that brings you as much joy as the Nice Dragons. Well, I was going to say bring both of us, but Gabi's losing her shit, so...
This has been another episode of Infinite TBR. You can find us on our Twitter at InfiniteTBR.
And we are individually on Twitter as @WhatSmackSaid and @Gabalodon, which is like Megalodon, but Gab in the front of it. And you can find all our show notes at InfiniteTBR.com. If you have book recommendations for us or questions you want answered during the podcast, feel free to email us at itbrshelf@gmail.com.